Hey everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Tears Tulle Talk. I am so excited to have Tiffany Hoehne here with us today. She is one of the original Tears Tulle participants to wear the original rainbow tulle skirt. Welcome, Tiffany, and I would love for you to tell viewers just a little bit about who you are.
Okay. I live in Utah. I'm not very far from Salt Lake City, the capital, and I'm married to a really good-hearted filmmaker who I just love to death. And we have 6 children, all boys. They're aged 4 to 20, so they keep me pretty busy. But I'm a life coach and a yoga teacher and a naturopath, and my goal is always to help women rock midlife by owning themselves again, like owning their bodies and their emotions and their intuition and all the good things about them that sometimes we kind of lose in adulthood. So that's what I'm really passionate about and what I love to do.
Yes, that's amazing. Awesome. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah.
So we start every episode out with a Tears Tulle moment because that's sort of the heart of Tears Tulle is showing up from within the perfectly imperfect to connect with that magic. And so we ask anyone coming on the show to let us know what their Tears Tulle moment is, which we're calling the even when, especially thens of life. And so we asked you ahead of time what that might be for you, and I would love to hear your answer.
Yes. So for me, this is something that I felt like I was tapping into with the original like Tears Tulle essay that I wrote, but also it's been driven home to me with recent events a lot that even when I think I don't know all the answers, I know what to do. And I don't know if that even makes sense. It doesn't sound that profound, but for me, like I'm a firstborn perfectionist child that never wanted to do anything unless I knew I could do it right. And I deliberate over decisions and I would avoid risk and I would avoid choices growing up and even in my adult life because I didn't want to make the wrong choices. And then about 4 months ago, I got a new job and I'm working at a health food store as a wellness consultant. So people come in and I advise them on diet or supplements or vitamin things that they can take to feel physically better, right? And but there's sort of a 6-month apprenticeship. So I came in with my base of knowledge, but I'm also being asked to up that knowledge so that I can serve my customers better. And there is just so much. There's every little thing that you can imagine about herbs and vitamins and body systems and drug interactions. And it's just so much. And about 2 months in, I started getting a lot of anxiety because I started realizing how much I needed to know to do this job at the level that I wanted to be doing it at. So I realized also that my expectations were an issue of like thinking that I needed to do this job perfectly. But I had it was just really bad anxiety. And then on top of that, like COVID has hit and I started working the week before stay-at-home orders started in Utah. So it was like we were trying to figure out what to do with my husband staying at home and having my kids home and schooling them and what's the right way to do all of these things and how do we want to socially distance in our family or socially isolate, I guess, and how do we stay physically and emotionally healthy with all those things. And I felt like there was so much in my head of me trying to figure out how do I do life right? And this matters more to me than it ever has before because it's these other people, right? It's not just me deciding like, well, what do I want to major in or things that just feel so central to me as a young person. But these were things of like with my children and these customers that I'm wanting to serve that are having their own challenges and issues. And it felt like a big deal to know the right thing to do. And I had a couple of coworkers who were like, you don't need to know everything. But also like trust your gut. Like there are things that you can just know without knowing all the answers. And I started leaning into that. And that's something that I advocate a lot for the people that follow my work. Like my tagline is feel like a kid, adult like a boss. Kids are very intuitive. And we kind of shut that down as we age. And so it's something that I advocate for all the time, but it was like a lesson that I needed to learn at a deeper level of trust yourself more with these things. And so I started leaning into that more, and into that feeling of, even if I don't know all the answers or haven't researched every single little thing, like I can know what I need to do in this next moment, and trusting that feeling. There's so much research out right now about like intuition and gut feelings, and where we don't know how it happens, but we know that there's something there. It's almost like electricity in Benjamin Franklin's time. Like, we don't really get it, but there's something there, and we just don't know how it works yet. And
Yes.
so no matter what you believe, if you believe in like a Holy Spirit or the energy of the universe or whatever, like there is something really there for us to access if we're willing to trust that. And so that's been a lesson that has just really come up for me recently, trusting that I know what to do, even if I don't have all the answers.
No, I think that is a very deep, even when, especially then, because I think so many of us can relate to feeling that way. And I think a lot of our listeners or people that might be viewing this online will really be able to sort of get in that space with you and know that they're not alone too, that they, you know, that we don't have to be perfect to show up in the world. Because I think,
Yes,
I know for me
so
especially,
mm-hmm.
I've felt that way so often throughout my life, that things need to be a certain way before I take that next step. And I think with Tears Tulle, we really, that skirt kind of gives you permission to jump before you're ready, you know, like most of us probably wouldn't go out and, you know, purchase that and wear it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it
totally
sort of comes and it gives you this sort of permission. So I would love to sort of dive into your experience with the skirt. You did such an amazing job of documenting, you know, from the moment it arrived at your home to, you know, being out on the beach in it, and then sending it off to the next person. I knew who got it after you, and they were like, oh, there are these little goodies in the box. And it was just such a cool thing to witness. And so I would love for you to share. I mean, there were crowns and wings, and I mean, there was just so many cool things as part of your shoot and your experience. And then the essay portion, I have to thank you at the very beginning of the project. You know, you had reached out to me, and I was so nervous about asking people, you know, will you wear the skirt? I was so excited that so many people said yes. And there was like this missing part about the story, people's Tears Tulle's story, you know, whatever that meant for them. And you had reached out and you said, I really want to know like a deeper story behind what's happening with, you know, with different people that are shooting with the skirt. So I just want to say thank you to you today, because you really opened me up. I had some fear around asking for too much, and it's become a really important part of this project, of this movement. So thank you, and please tell us how your experience went from the time it arrived.
I mean, it was, I have to say, the whole thing just made me giddy, like from the get-go. The idea was amazing, and it made me feel like a kid again. And as I've already mentioned, and I probably will mention again, like that is something that feels really important to me, that I try to preach to other people, like, how can you feel like a kid again in all these ways? Because children can just like, it's unrestrained, right? When they have any emotions, really. And so we try to be like, don't be so mad, don't cry so much. But then we also are like, don't be so happy, don't be so vulnerable. And like, we shut it all down. And so I love when I feel those feelings of like, I just am so happy. And it, like, the grin is like falling off my face because it's so big. And that's how I felt. Like, this huge box arrived. I pulled it open. There's this giant skirt, and I just keep pulling. It's like endless, pulling it out of the box. I feel like Mary Poppins, right?
And it was in a garbage bag, right? So it
Yes,
was even
yeah,
more like sort of yin and yang that you were pulling this beautiful skirt out of
totally.
her. Yeah.
Yes, and it was huge and floofy and beautiful, and I just um and I was going to get to dress up in it. Like, that's always fun. Again, like tapping into these fun feelings that you don't get to have often as an adult. And then I get to go out in public and do a photo shoot. And like, you cannot not draw attention to yourself when you're in that skirt. And I feel like that was a takeaway for me that I wanted to share and that I loved about the whole experience was this idea of, I don't know if you're familiar with Amy Cuddy's TED Talk about like how physiology can, about power posing or how physiology can affect psychology. It's a brilliant TED Talk if any of your listeners want to check it out. But it's an emotions hack that I love because it's basically that if you put your body in bigger positions, like with your arms out, your legs out, even the Wonder Woman position with your elbows out.
Oh, I think I have seen this.
Okay, yes. You put yourself in a physical position, but it actually creates like a cascade of like neurotransmitters and hormones that create an emotional state of confidence, self-assurance, and the opposite is true as well, where when you shrink or make yourself smaller, it brings on feelings of feeling less secure, less confident, just like you kind of like you want to disappear. And there's sort of a feedback loop there of you can feel those feelings and then start assuming those positions. You feel bad and you get in the fetal position, right?
Sure.
When at home on your bed when you're crying. But also you can take those positions. Well, like, I'm sorry, let me backtrack a little. It's a feedback loop because you might feel those feelings and get in those positions, but then those positions reinforce that feeling. But you can use it as an emotions hack to be like, I need to feel more confident. I'm about to go in for a job interview or a test or whatever. And like Amy Cuddy mentions, like run into the bathroom for 2 minutes and just stand like Wonder Woman.
I love it.
This cool thing. But I felt like that with the skirt. So it's huge. Like you are huge in the skirt, and it was huge and beautiful, and I felt this huge energy and this beautiful energy wearing it. And I was like, okay, how, like, it's exhilarating, and how do I move this into my daily life? I can't wear a skirt like this every day. That's impractical. Even though it was awesome. But I'm like, well, what other ways can I show up bigger in my life? And maybe that's something that I wear. Maybe that's how I choose to let my voice be heard at work or at home or church or wherever, social groups. But what are the ways that I can play a little bigger and inspire that confidence and that self-assurance more? I do like to do it with clothes. I like to wear bright colors or things that stick out. And I don't necessarily like to be the center of attention, but I do like to wear big, bright, sometimes weird things because that makes me feel that confidence. And that energy is what I can take out and love on other people with. That's why it's important to me, because it helps us like make this world better and us happier. So, but maybe for somebody else, that's something totally different. Like I said, maybe it's letting your voice be heard, showing up on social media or whatever, but doing something where instead of playing small, you show up a little bigger and let your big, divine, glorious spirit show out a little more. Because I really believe that we are just these amazing, huge spirits that like can barely fit in these little bodies. And
Yes.
that when we aren't like playing big and being true to that, part of why that feels so painful for us is because it's being inauthentic to who we are. And so for me, the skirt was just a reminder of that, like, keep playing big, keep showing up. And the reward is that you get to feel bigger, and there's a feedback loop, right? And then you will keep showing up more, hopefully, and feeling more awesome and doing more awesome things in the world. So
Absolutely. And what you're saying totally confirms, so many of the participants have said while wearing it, there was this energy, this like that expanded. And it's sort of what you're saying, you know, like that
Yeah,
what's inside of us comes out. And it's almost like, I feel like we're giving, by wearing the skirt, we're giving other people that see us in it permission to remember theirs too, you know? So I feel like that's sort
absolutely.
of, you know, where you were at with it too. It was like
Hmm.
anybody noticing this on you could just think even for a second about their own inner magic that they might have forgotten about or left behind or something like that. So thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful experience. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear too about your essay portion. So
Mhm.
it was so raw, so real, and so relatable what you wrote. And you took us back in time for a moment to some times where you were having some serious struggles, um, and then that was like the beginning portion of the essay, and then you realized that there were sort of these tool moments, you know, everything's tears in tool, these
Mhm.
tool moments that were actually within those darker times, and that again is what Tears and Tool is about. And towards the end of the essay, you talked about your wings, how you had developed these wings throughout. So if you would like, I would love to hear about that experience, your Tears and Tool moment, what you wrote about in the essay.
Yes, my husband and I went out to graduate school in New York. I mean, I had graduated and my husband was doing a master's degree. And so we moved out to Syracuse University, which is far away from home for us. We both grew up in Utah. And it was like 3 months after I'd had a baby. So there's still like a lot of adjustments schedule wise. Your hormones are all over the place. You're getting no sleep. There's just a lot of things happening that were stressful, right? And I started having some weird health problems out there and that we couldn't explain, we couldn't figure out. And my husband finished graduate school and we needed to find a job and ended up having a company in Utah asking us to come back and do a contract job. And because it was a contract job and we thought we won't be here that long, we asked my grandma to stay with her in her basement while we did this. And so we came back to Utah for 6 weeks, but it ended up being like we never left. So my husband kept getting contract jobs here. And over the next 6 to 12 months, my grandma's health started going down a lot. And my mom actually lives next door. My parents do. And my mom and I became my grandma's primary caregivers. And we did that for 4 years. And there were a lot of cool experience there, but it was incredibly difficult. Like I had my third child while we were taking care of her. And there were these crazy moments of like, I'm not exaggerating this. This really happened like within the same month that my baby got in his first teeth, like bottom two teeth, right, are the typical ones that come in. My grandma's same teeth like fell out randomly. When he started
Wow.
eating solid foods, it was within a month of that we were starting to have to like blend everything for her so that she could take it through a straw, right? She lost her mobility around the same time that he started walking. And with a baby, like taking care of babies is hard, but I think in the back of your head, I mean, for one thing, like often you've chosen into that. And then also I there's always this hope that it will get better. They're going to grow, they're going to learn, they're not going to be in diapers forever, right? It
Right.
felt almost the opposite with my grandma. Like I did have a choice and we did choose to stay and help take care of her. But in some ways, it also felt like we just landed there and then there was no hope of it getting better. And I didn't know how long it would last. And it was emotionally excruciating sometimes. Trying to take care of her and my little ones, and she couldn't handle noise very much, and little boys make a lot of noise. So it was just so hard. And I remember going to Costco and seeing this book titled You Can Heal Your Life. and I bought it immediately. Just because, like, if I could have afforded therapy, I would have been in it, but I couldn't. And I was like, anything that would help me, right? And so I took it home, and there were a lot of like great things in it that I learned, but mostly that idea of like I could be in control and I could heal my own life was that anchor that I really needed. And it was so hard, but going through that experience, I remember when my grandma died, my aunts invited me to come help dress her body. And when she passed away, like I couldn't cry, and I felt kind of bad about that. Like, did I not care enough? Or like, why am I not mourning, right? But I had been with her on a daily basis, and also as a granddaughter, not as a daughter. So there's a different attachment there. But I remember like helping dress her body and seeing she's not in there, right? And the words from Martin Luther King came to my head, like, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Sorry. But like, for me, like, to look at her and have this realization of, it was hard, but I'm not crying, not because I'm not sad, but because I'm happy for her to be free of this experience that she went through. And then for me to also learn how to become free emotionally of that experience, to process the difficulties that I'd been through. And that was a big reason why I started my own brand and the work that I do with trying to help people tap back into their inner child and their inner joy. And it's because that was my experience, was I had removed myself so far from that with adult responsibilities and not letting myself feel those things, that it had been a detriment to me. And so I didn't want that for anybody else. So that it like fueled the work that I began, and I was studying intensely like how to process emotions because I didn't know what to do with mine. And now I can teach other people how to do that. And the fact that we lived with her and she really didn't want us to pay rent was like, it allowed my husband to start his business that he does as a filmmaker. And it was a really hard time that I wouldn't want to repeat, but it really was our wings. Like, I 100% feel that, like, it gave us the motivation and the means and the experience to fly in our lives the way we are right now. And so even though it was so difficult, like, I would never wish it away, because it really did allow us to level up in our lives. And I think that's true of like all of our hard things in life, is just that nobody wants them, but those are the things that like let you soar, you know? Anyway.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful story about your grandmother and your whole experience. Thank you so much for trusting me and sharing that with our listeners and viewers. It was beautiful. I'm wondering then how it felt to wear actual wings during the shoot. So you talk about finding those wings. How did it feel to actually physically wear wings then while you were out on the beach? I don't know how those pictures were taken or edited or whatever, but you are like soaring. You are flying in the air. I saw the sneak peek that you had posted, before I actually got your pictures, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, how did they even do that? So I'm wondering how it felt to actually wear those physical wings to accompany the invisible ones that you wear every day, like the invisible skirts we wear every day.
I love that. It was really fun. Interestingly, though, now that you bring that up, I'm just thinking, I had this vision in my mind of props that I wanted to use as symbols for the Tears Tulle moments in my life, at least. And I was very excited about them. It was going to be very cool. There's not actually, like, obviously Utah has no oceans. So the beach is like on the Great Salt Lake, and it was freezing. Like it
And it was freezing?
Yeah, what was it? November or December? I'm trying to remember. And anyway, like we showed up and like I was super excited about it, but the sandiness, like I had to be really careful not to get sand all over the skirt. And I didn't have any footwear because like the beaches are not just sandy, they're like salty sandy. So it'll wreck anything you're wearing on your feet. So I went out barefoot and I'm standing on a metal ladder and then they were going to edit that out. So it looked like I was flying, right? But like within like the first 10 minutes was like, I'm shaking. It's so cold. And my photographer is my sister-in-law. She's amazing. She had like gloves on and she took them off and like pulled them onto my feet as far as she could. And like, it just felt very indicative of like a Tears Tulle moment almost, was that like, it was actually like a harder shoot. But I had so much fun preparing for it, but then the actual shoot was it was frigid, and we kept having to like adjust things because the wind was blowing or the wings fell off a little, or so it took longer than we thought, and we were all wet and cold at the end of it. But then these beautiful pictures came out of it, and I actually loved some of the ones that were really moody with like, because the sun was setting, where it was kind of dark behind me, but then there's just like this beautiful pop of color with the skirt. And I mean, so the actual shoot was fun, but also like uncomfortable, I guess. And I think that's a great analogy for what life should be feeling like for us. Like it should be feeling fun and uncomfortable, because that means that you're doing something cool and a little bit hard and you're growing, and don't be afraid of that kind of stuff.
Yes,
because the results are awesome, right?
They are. And I don't think that we can really experience things on a deeper level unless we go through those things that are uncomfortable. I can't believe we are almost at time already. Mm-hmm. It went so fast. So I would love for you to tell people where they can find you online, whether it's social media or a website or something that you might have going on, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest place to find me is just Red Licorice Life on Instagram. That's where I'm showing up the most right now. So
yes, I love your
join the party.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
It's such a like when you talk about helping people remember like that childlike innocence almost, where we can connect with the color and all that. Like if you go to Tiffany's page, if you go to your page, you will find just the most fun posts that just sort of bring you back in time for a moment, and then allow you to grow a little. So thank you. Yes. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your heart.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Have a great day, Tiffany.
Thanks. See you.
Bye.
Bye.